Hello and welcome. This is Universal Heritage Television Niger. We are bringing you another package in our face-to-face on UHTV Niger. Face-to-face on UHTV Niger is our personality interview program. My guest today is His Royal Highness Eze Jude Chidi Nwaogu. He is the traditional ruler of Ebele-Obube Autonomous Community. We are going to take him through a lot of issues spanning from his career, his role as a traditional ruler, and maybe one or two contemporary issues playing out in the society. My name is Afam Echi, your host. Please remember to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube platform. His Royal Highness Eze Jude Chidi Nwaogu is also the chairman of Owerri North Council of Traditional Rulers, as well as the secretary Owerri Zone Council of Traditional Rulers. He had his first degree at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, where he bagged a BSc Honours in Accounting. And incidentally, in that program, he emerged as the best graduating student in Cost and Management Accounting. That was way back in 1992. And in 2002, he bagged his MBA degree in Business Administration. He has a lot of professional qualification. In fact, what I have on my hand is a very rich profile I cannot give you in detail, but let me abridge it and talk about his professional qualification. In 2000, he became a chartered accountant under the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, that is ICAN. And 12 years later, he became a fellow of that professional organization. In the same 2012, he was awarded a fellow of Certified Public Administrators of England and Wales using the letters FCPA. It might interest you to know too that he is also an associate of Institute of Cost and Management Accountant using the designatory letters ACM. He's also a chartered member of Nigerian Institute of Taxation. And there are other professional groups he belongs to. And then concerning his professional training, there is so much. He trained in industrial relationship, leadership and strategy, trained in oil and gas, negotiation and conflict management, conflict resolution. He had also training in banking operations, service excellence, cost management, and so many others. And then his working experience, his career started with a stint in oil and gas, starting with Ajib, Nigeria. Then he worked in a leasing venture and a finance company. Then before he moved to FSB International Bank, where he had his best career ever, and was rated among the top 20 best staff of the organization. He also had a brief stint with International Trust Bank in 1997 before moving to Mobile Producing, Nigeria in 1988, where he held various positions, which for lack of time, I will not be able to reel out. And then our traditional ruler played very good roles as a unionist, starting from his secondary school to his university days. And then not many knew that he was among those who called the shots in Pengassin. Pengassin is Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, where he held positions at the chapter levels and then later became the Deputy National Chairman.
President.
The Deputy National President. And that is, you know, that there is so much power attached to that position. That was between 2014 and 2017. There are numerous awards to his credit. I cannot mention all, but I do remember that he emerged as the best graduating students in Obube Secondary School in Owerri North in 1984, and then emerged as the best graduating students again in Cost and Management Accounting at the UNN. There are so many excellent service awards from both Pengassin, NUJ, and other student bodies and organizations. Sir, you are welcome to our program.
God bless you.
And I have to say congratulations for this rich
Thank you very
profile.
much.
Now, let me ask this question. Now, recently you celebrated your birthday, and I guess it is not an offense asking a natural ruler how many years he has sojourned on the earth, because we would like to know, and then tell us how you feel about the ceremony, even though you didn't invite us.
God bless you. I was born July 9, 1970. So just about a month ago, my people reminded me of my birthday, and we had a celebration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is, you're looking at, that should be 53 years.
Yeah, 53.
Okay, okay. And when you say your people reminded you about the celebration, does it mean it doesn't play out in a diary that...
I'm not really very keen at birthdays, but you know, there's one thing I've realized about fathers.
Okay.
I have 3 kids, a son and 2 girls. They are born March, April, and May, in that order.
Okay.
The first one was in March, the second one was April, and May, including my wife, was also March. So each time it's their birthday, they will remind me, Daddy, it's my birthday, what are we doing? And then I will help them celebrate.
Okay.
You know, when it comes to July, they will also remind me, so that I will also help them celebrate as well.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so it will be interesting to know, how long have you occupied the stool as a traditional ruler?
That was since 2007.
Okay.
So about 16 years on the throne now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, we would also like to know how you emerged as a traditional ruler. Is it by inheritance? Is it by choice? Your people unanimously voted you? Or is it that in a lighter mood this time, you use the experience as a trade unionist to hold protests, hold strike, and, and then galvanize the people to shoot yourself to power? So how did this happen, sir?
To be honest with you, I think to become a traditional ruler is about the last thing I had wanted to be. But when the time came, my people approached me. They wanted me to be the traditional ruler. It was difficult initially, but at the end of the day, I looked at it. It was supposed to come from my own village, which incidentally is the head of the community. And when it comes to that village too, my own kindred is the head, including my family also being the head of that kindred. So they wrote out the process. After the initial reluctance, I had to key in. Again, realizing that it's going to end up with a delegates election. So I said, to God be the glory, whatever came up with the election, let it be. So after the selection process, the committee went into the election proper. But I'm happy to tell you that out of the 113 delegates that voted, I got 103 votes.
Wow.
The other people shared 10 votes. So it was not really a contest. But again, answering your question of whether I used my experience or whatever, but I think it's nothing like that. It's actually the will of God, because one of the people that contested was actually the President General of the Town Union at that time. He was the one that set up the committee. He was the one that wrote out the plan. So he was in a better position to have tinkered with the process and things like that. But as fate will have it, the people spoke. And that was the voice of God too.
Okay, you ran against how many persons?
We were 4 originally, but one person stepped down. So at the end of the day, 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, since 16 years you've been on the throne, what is it like playing the role of a traditional ruler? That's looking at the challenges specifically.
Yeah, it's really a difficult thing, let me be honest with you, especially as a young man. You know, traditional institution goes with a lot of authority and with a lot of things that go with it. But then, I thank God for the training He gave me in the union, because I see it very helpful. There are times, even the people of the community, there are times we get to a situation where they are like, how do we navigate this?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when I deploy 1 or 2 steps, and it's very easy, we keep going.
Okay.
So I thank God for the training I had before stepping into that shoes.
It's okay, sir. Now, by the time you leave the throne, by however means, what would you like to be remembered for? What legacy would you like to leave behind?
Of course, but you said however means. The only means is death do me part, Abi?
Yes.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be remembered that during my time, I'm able to really establish the traditional institution in Ebelubube firmly. And there's one other thing I've made very clear to my people. As a traditional ruler, I am in charge of the custom and tradition of the people. But I've also told them that those aspects of the culture and tradition that conflict with the word of God will not thrive. So I'm also trying to strike a balance between what modernity wants and what the traditional institution is all about. For instance, I'm aware, and I was part of the unveiling of the VAMP law of 2021, which Imo State accommodated.
What do you call it?
The law that is vulnerable persons law. And that law itself is a conflict with so many of those traditional and customary laws, you know, whereby there are certain things you do to a widow, certain things, you know, before we used to say that if you had female children, those female ones are not entitled to their father's inheritance. That was the old order. But the law now have a shift from those things. Even a girl is entitled to that. So as an enlightened traditional ruler, I'm also making sure that we strike a balance between those traditional old orders, so to say, and what the law requires. So anytime I leave the throne, God's willing, at the time God dictated it, so I think I'll be remembered for such things and really institutionalizing what should be traditional leadership in my community.
Okay, there is something you just said now, a very interesting issue, and let me take you on it right away. You said you promised your people you are going to strike a balance between the old order and maybe perhaps your faith, what you believe, the word of God.
Yeah.
Now, religion is supposed to be the culture of a people, including the ones we inherited from the foreign religions.
Yeah.
Now, how would you reconcile? We also have our own culture. You know, how would you reconcile traditional rulers? There are some traditional rulers who are strong members of the church that either belong to the knighthood or hold one position or another. They go to church, they receive Holy Communion, you know, and as people who are referred to rightly or wrongly as custodians of our culture. How do you reconcile seeing them straddling between two cultures? The received culture or the foreign religion, and then the local culture. I'm taking you based on what you said.
I understand.
Yeah. So how does it go? How effective do we? Because our culture is our culture, and it is supposed to be practiced, and the observance is kept as it used to. Because the people that instituted it have their purposes for doing so.
Let me go straight into it. There's actually no disconnect. We are the one creating that divide.
There's actually no disconnect.
There's no disconnect between. Let me give you a practical example. When we are going through the process of screening before I emerged as a traditional ruler, we had some kind of question and answer session. All the people that we are contesting, And I recall that particular day, I made this kind of presentation to talk about striking a balance. You know, the question that came up was like, for you to say that, does that mean you are not going to be observing our culture and tradition? Are you not going to throw it away on the platform of religion?
Yeah.
And I told them straight to the point. Our main cultural heritage in my community, Bolobe, is Iriazu Festival. Iriazu Festival.
Okay.
It has to do with our discovery of Oramunokwa River, and then people shifting from their usual way of hunting and so on now into fishing.
Okay.
So from there we begin to on an annual basis celebrate the fish we now use as protein.
Okay.
So that festival goes with so many other subcultures in it. One of them is the one we call Ewonwa. Ewonwa Festival is an embodiment and part of that Iri as a festival. What does that entail? It tries to achieve two things. One, on that day of that festival, all the children that were born between the last celebration and that day, which is like 1 year, all of them are brought and are dedicated to the gods, the deity of those days. They will carry them, each baby, they will drop the baby in the shrine as part of dedication to the deity, you know. And again, it also serves as a kind of census for you to know the children that were born within
that particular period.
That year. So what I told them at that time is, of course, what is the essence of that culture? Dedication to God and the census. Anytime we are doing the areas of festival, because like I asked the people, today, will you be comfortable to bring your child to be dropped before a shrine? Nobody said yes to that. So automatically that aspect of the culture is moribund. Do you understand? And that is what we are going to remove. Not that we are going to remove the areas of festival. Not that we are going to remove the Ewonwa. We still do it, but what we did in the last count, the areas of festival, what we did was, on that particular day, all the children that were born within that 1 year, all of them were brought. Before us in that festival, we have all the pastors, the Anglican Reverend was present, the Catholic Reverend was present, and the rest of them. So they brought the children, and all these people came together and prayed for them, and also dedicated them to God, the ultimate God. So that aspect was still done. And again, the census aspect was also achieved. So that is actually what I mean. Those ones that are running in conflict with the standards of the current situation of things are the ones who drop. But on a general note, we still observe our culture, the areas, everything in it, we do it, and so on. So I think that's what I'm saying.
Sir, you worked in two of Nigeria's most productive thriving sectors, the banking industry and the oil and gas. Now, if you look at what is happening in our economy presently, these two sectors, no matter the circumstances, have continued to record huge profits, whereas the people are groaning under heavy pains. The economy is ailing. But the oil and gas people and those in the banking sector continue to post huge profits. So, what do you think is responsible for this? How can you account for this situation?
Well, talking about the Nigerian banking system, I think part of the problem, you see a lot of banks doing what is not actually the traditional banking functions.
Okay.
You know, if you really do a traditional banking function, the banking sector is supposed to grow along the line of the economy. If the economy is not diving, it will affect the banking sector negatively. You know, and when the when it's the other way, it's also like that. But a situation whereby the economy is going down and the banking sector is posting huge profit, I don't really think is the way it should be. You see, I think that it has to do with a Nigerian factor, and again the way our economy is structured. Sometimes people say the mainstay of our economy is the oil and gas. But I tell you that is the only stay of our economy for now, not even mainstay. And such a situation is very bad. If other sectors were developed, like the real sector, in finance there are areas we call real sector, that is the manufacturing sector, the agri sector. If all these areas were developed, the banks will be doing their normal work, and then the economy will grow in that order. But a situation whereby the economy is dependent solely on oil and gas, it makes it very difficult. So the economy of the nation is about you produce a crude oil, you sell it, and unfortunately for us, the crude oil itself, we don't refine them here. So there's even no further activity that is going on. The whole thing is parceled out as crude and sold into international market. And at the end of the day, we now import the products back here. So it's really, that disconnect is affecting the whole economy. Then the banks now resort to so many other things. Cut and divide, they help some individuals do certain things, make money and so on. But again, like what most of them are relying on now, those little charges that CBN has put in place. As little as it looks, those charges are really huge at the end of the day. So I think that's a problem with the economy. And then when you talk about oil and gas, of course, like I said, oil and gas being the mainstay of the economy, especially those in the producing sector. You produce it, you sell to international market. Nigeria used to sell on the average of 2.5 million barrels per day, but that continues to drop. Right now it's slightly above 1 million barrels per day they sell, and make money. At the end of the day, again, the way the economy is shared is structured. We talk about federation, but don't even think it's actually federated. At the end of the day, the federal government will take the money, then distribute to the states in the sharing formula. So everybody is just interested in that. Other sectors are just gone. So it's affecting all of us.
Okay. Now you see, Imo traditional rulers don't appear to be enjoying good commentaries from the people on account of the fact that they are people say they place themselves as people who are supposed to be, they are seen, but they are not heard. What actually they mean is, there are governance issues people expect traditional rulers to come out to speak strongly about. But we don't hear any of them make any comments. People accuse them of being under the pocket of those who are ruling us. And because for fear that they may be destooled, the staff of office will be removed. They don't say, they are just like, they see no evil, they hear no evil. And so you are one of them.
Well,
how do you respond to this?
That's a major issue, but let me tackle it from its foundation.
Okay.
One is that every community is responsible to producing their own traditional ruler.
Okay.
Either by way of if it's hereditary or it's rotational, you, based on whatever constitution you have, you produce your traditional ruler. And then a step further will be recognition by government. Then at that point, government will issue a certificate of recognition and staff of office to that traditional ruler. So, one, you are responsible to your community people, but on the part of government, we also see ourselves as part of the government, who identify with the ruling government to also ensure that the dividend of democracy get to our community people. That is about that. But again, there's one structural issue which we have been fighting to address. It's not really our fight, so to say. Today, in the constitution of the country, there is no substantive role of traditional rulers in the constitution.
Wow.
And that several times, of course, people talk about constitutional amendment and so on. And that is one of those things that are penciled down to be addressed, to create an official rule for traditional rulers in the constitution. But I'm aware, at least as somebody, as a chairman of the traditional rulers in Owerri North, and of course, let me say somebody that is playing in the traditional institution in Imo State today, I'm aware that His Excellency Governor Hope Uzodinma is pushing, at least to start it from Imo State, to create a rule for traditional rulers. You know, I think if that happens, it will go a long way. When you say somebody is heard, is not seen, some kind
somebody
of things,
is seen but not heard.
You are seen, you are not heard.
Yeah.
There are certain situations, a situation will arise, you only make a comment. It doesn't really carry any weight, you know. But I think once that constitutional rule is ascribed to it, it will be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, taking your people into account, you know, your subjects, as well as other people, rural dwellers in other parts of Imo State and Nigeria, generally, what agenda would you like to set for the current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that will be able to make life better for the people?
Okay. You introduced me as a unionist. Maybe you'll be shocked to hear me say this. I've played to that level of a national deputy president of Pengasa. And this is one union that I tell you we hold strong sway in the economy. We discuss at that level, even the Buhari that just left as president. I was opportune to have a couple of meetings when I was a deputy president. You see, one thing I will tell you is that Bola Tinubu, President, His Excellency, took the right step in that removal of the so-called oil subsidy.
Yeah.
It's a very bold step, and I tell you, as somebody that have been in that industry, that contraption we are calling oil subsidy was really dealing with this economy. And what was the subsidy all about? I've talked about it, that we produce crude oil here and parcel the whole crude oil overseas to refine. At the end of the day, the products are imported back. So the so-called subsidy was coming in the form of inefficiencies, you know, whereby because all those things that are happening, even when they are bringing it back, sometimes demurrage is involved and so on. Those are the things that will bloat up the so-called subsidy. And then they are using our fund to be paying for that. If that subsidy is removed as it is, there are so many other things. Also, like I said, as the deputy president then, I know how much Nigeria was voting for turnaround maintenance on annual basis. And I tell you that each time, this amount is even up to something that could be used to start a fresh refinery. And you see us wasting resources in that order. So,
in other words, something like pilferage or reckless spending.
The worst is that this turnaround maintenance are not even done. If you say pilferage is an understatement. At the end of the day, if there is a turnaround maintenance this year, you don't need to vote out money for another turnaround. It takes a while. Yeah. But this is an annual ritual. you know, and each time they bring money, it looks like political settlement, and it goes like that, huge amount, and the refineries are not still working. This year it will go from a 40% capacity utilization, the next year it goes down to 30%, just like that. That is how both the Kaduna refinery, Port Harcourt refinery, that's how they are. And when we did all this, of course, you know what happens with the pipeline issues and so on, which was where people are now using to drain the crude, you know. So part of what I think Tinubu would do, one, he has started well, but again, I personally, I don't subscribe to the idea of all this cash palliative that is being discussed. It will not help us, because at the end of the day, 50% of that cash palliative will not even get to the people. And that will be another way of enriching people. As a finance person, what I think we can do is, Tinubu told us that in the last 1 month, he has saved up to 1 trillion from that removal of subsidy. If that is correct, what I want us to see is whereby this money is invested into the real sector, the manufacturing sector, the agri sector, and so on. Then it will create employment and so on. In the next 2 years down the line, the economy will be bouncing back. So we can face the trouble for now, for a while, because that cash palliative is not what will solve it. So,
okay, sir, we are coming towards the end of the program, and before I let you go, let me ask you, what will you regard as the high point of your career, and maybe on the other side, the lower point of your career?
Well, I will always tell people, when you say career now, my career span from the banking industry. I had one of my best career when I was in FSB. At that point, I was in charge of management reporting and regulatory reporting in FSB. It was a very fruitful career, and that was the time I was rated one of the top 20 people in the bank. I was having promotion. I worked in the bank for just 4 years, for information. And starting as a fresh graduate, I left as assistant manager. Wow. So you can see that it was a very wonderful career. Then I also moved to the oil and gas industry. It was also a very great career. But the bulk of it was more of unionism. And that was probably when God was training me for the traditional role. In FSB, I report in the oil and gas. I was a chapter chairman. I started as auditor in the union. From auditor, I became a chapter chairman for 3 years. Then I led the entire workforce of ExxonMobil for 6 years. And that is a feat that has been there till now. Even when I finished at that 6 years, people were like clamoring for me to continue. After that, I also have been Port Harcourt Zonal Treasurer for 3 years before I was elected the National Deputy President for 3 years. It was a very great training for me in terms of what leadership is all about, and even relation to people. So, and then coming to the traditional angle, of course, you know, our Igbo culture, we are Republican in nature. So the issue of traditional institution is even fairly new. But I thank God for the knowledge base I brought into the traditional institution. It's actually helping me a great deal.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. It's very interesting having you on our platform. Thank you so much for coming.
God bless you.
At another opportune moment, we would also like to have you back.
God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you. Viewers, you've heard it from our guest. He has told us that there is no substantive role for traditional rulers placed in the Constitution, and perhaps in a matter of time, this should be done so that they could identify with specific roles. And he has taken us through his career path and then the role he's playing and through so many other things. So on this note, we round off the program. My name again is Afam H. Please remember to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube platform. Thank you for being part of the program.